5 mistakes that I see most couples make when they're trying to transform their marriage, and then the shifts that you need to address those mistakes, because they're super common. I do get some pushback on this. It's not a mainstream way of looking at it, so I know in advance that I might get some flack around this, but in my experience, this is really what makes the difference. So the first mistake is waiting for your spouse to join you and not being willing to go first. Traditional marriage counseling treats the couple as the client. They both have to participate equally. They both have to come to every session. And so if one person doesn't want counseling or isn't available for it, or for whatever reason, they can't get the help that they need, right? Because it has to be billed under couples work. And if both people aren't there, then they can't bill for it. So that's why a lot of married couples who really love each other end up divorced, is because one person's ready and the other person isn't. And it's just mistimed readiness. It's not even really about a level of commitment. It's like maybe they just aren't lined up. And so that mistimed readiness is really the biggest issue. So you don't want to wait until you're both in the same place at the same time. You want to just go ahead and start on your own first. If you can just say, I'm going to start with myself first and I'm going to look inward, that will allow you to catalyze radical transformation from the inside out. And the dynamics change as a result. Because if you've got two people in a dynamic and one person changes what they do and how they respond and how they feel and the energy they bring, there's no way that the dynamic isn't going to be changed. So you do have more power than you think that you do. Now, the second mistake is working on the marriage through insight-based approaches that bypass the subconscious limiting beliefs, the default modes that will sabotage you, right? And most therapy only engages the prefrontal cortex. You can have a lot of insight, and that prefrontal cortex is very intelligent and it understands theoretical concepts, why you do what you do, why it's not a good idea, and what you should do differently next time. But if that knowledge doesn't filter into the subconscious programs, as soon as you get triggered, you're not going to remember that. You're not going to be able to access that information until once you're not triggered anymore. I think that's why so many couples backslide. There's no way that we as human beings can be always mindful. We just can't do it because we're human. So you don't want to rely on staying conscious in every moment. You want to know that if you're offline, if your prefrontal cortex is offline, that your muscle memory of your programs is going to still take you in the direction that you want to go. Now, the third mistake is that they start with communication first, before you're emotionally connected, before you feel safe. The safety and the connection, that emotional connection, is what changes your perceptual filter to see your partner as your ally. The way that you receive what they say is massively impacted by your felt sense of if they're an ally or not. If you're not feeling great about your spouse and they want to give you a piece of advice, you're not going to take that advice. You don't trust that it's coming from a good place. But when you're feeling connected emotionally, well, then you're on the same side of the table and you can have a difficult conversation with the deep knowing of like, hey, we're on the same side and we're unifying against the pattern. It's not me versus you. It's us against the pattern. And so the shift that we have to make if we really are in crisis in marriage is to spend our energy on building that emotional connection first. Now, another huge mistake that I see couples counseling focus on is rehashing the problems, focusing on the problems, analyzing the problems, living in the world of the problems. And this makes sense, right? Because the mainstream approach is they're diagnostic. They identify and they analyze symptoms. We're looking at a cluster of symptoms. We're diagnosing. And there's this sort of belief. I think the paradigm that we're operating from within a diagnostic model is that there's a problem that we have to fix. There are these symptoms that give us a label of what the problem is. And it's important, right? Because if we don't know what the condition is, we don't know how to treat it. I understand it. I'm not trashing that. You have to know what are we dealing with in order to know what the cure is or what the solution is. The problem is that when we stay there too long, I think that's the problem, is we stay there too long and we have this belief that we can't really have a connection or feel happy in our marriage until we've rectified the problems. When really the shift that we need to move out of that is to expand the positive interactions, reduce the negative interactions, and have a good time and build some goodwill in the relationship. So make it a good relationship before you tackle the problems. So what you have to do is systematically expand the positive aspects of the marriage until the negative aspects become marginal. And the John Gottman ratio that he came up with from his research is 5-1, right? It has to be 5-1 positive to negative, as defined by the couples. Is very subjective, but it is measurable. For every negative interaction, you should have 5 positive interactions. And that's the minimum, right? Anything less than that, you're not on stable ground. 50-50, you're in danger territory. But if you can get 10-1, 20-1, then you're on solid footing. That doesn't mean you don't have negative things. It's literally like all you have to do is expand the positive interactions and you haven't even touched the problems. But if you can marginalize them first by expanding the positive, well, now you have more resources to go back. They just feel way less overwhelming. It's just a fraction proportionally now of what you have to deal with, and you feel so much stronger. And so you just have to think about, okay, what do I want? What do I want to create? What is a positive interaction? What would my partner think is a positive interaction? And how can I create that? And focus on building what you want rather than trying to navigate and be upset about what you don't want. And then the final mistake that I see is that we forget that we are really the product of who we surround ourselves with. And we stay isolated doing couples work. So many couples don't even want to tell anybody that they're in counseling because there's shame around it. And I get it. It's private. It's nobody's business. But I can't help but think that a lot of times it comes from a place of shame, right? It is a personal thing, but every marriage has struggles. If you're going to have a long marriage, there's no way that you can escape having challenges at times. So if we just normalize that, it doesn't have to be done shrouded in secrecy. It can be something that you get help for, but also really what I'm saying is not just getting help like a counselor or a mentor or a therapist, but a community of people I think is so important. And I don't see that enough with couples work. I think you have to have both. I think you have to have the private help, the support with somebody who can help you professionally. A neutral outside person is super valuable, but it's so important to be connected to other people that are walking the same talk, that are learning the same language, that are on the same journey, that can relate to the challenges, but also are inspired by the successes. And when you have a community of peers that are inspiring each other and lifting each other up, and they know that they're not alone, and you realize how much more common what you're experiencing is, there's less shame, there's more acceptance, self-acceptance, which then of course allows us to come forward and take risks and have a leap of faith and to try something new and lean into the new experiences of relational health, even though it might feel terrifying, like being vulnerable. And these are relationships and connections that you take with you beyond the therapy, right? Now you're connected to people that know what relational health is. They know how to create it. They know what the pitfalls are. And now you have new friends, you have new community members that it's like being in a like-minded fellowship, right? Just like people like to find fellowship in their churches or in their volunteer communities or their missions. And I do believe, this is my opinion, that it is required for leveling up and ultimate mastery is to be in a community of people that are doing the same thing. And I don't think, just as an aside, it's a good idea to take advice from unhappily married people. So bottom line is that couples counseling does have notoriously poor outcomes. And so there's a few things that you want to look for. You want to find something with high support, high traction, and support between sessions, not just once a week, 50 minutes, or once every 2 weeks, 50 minutes, where you just scratch the surface and then come back next week and do the same thing, right? Because it's just not enough. You want to find somebody that will really support the inner focus, the triggers, and the subconscious programming, that understands how to help you reprogram old limiting beliefs and old default modes, not just in a cerebral way. Also, you want somebody that really understands emotional connection first. A lot of therapists that are familiar with the work of Sue Johnson, it's called EFT, emotion focused therapy. There are people that are certified in that. Those types of therapists really have a deep understanding of the importance of emotional connection before communicating, creating that safety, and they have a very well-established modality to help you do that. You also want to look for some kind of support where there's structure and daily work, some kind of embodiment of what you're learning. It's not just enough to have those insights. If you're in crisis, time is working against you. If you're on the brink, if you feel like your spouse is like 1 foot out the door, you definitely want to double down and prioritize your marriage work. I think you want to make your marriage as important as the wedding. I mean, obviously, I think nothing else matters more because I'm biased. This is what I do, but I've been through the worst. I've been separated. I didn't think my marriage would make it twice. So I just have personal experience with feeling like it's worth it because I did come out the other side, and I see people do come out the other side. So I say that just to leave hope. If you're frustrated, if you feel like, it hasn't worked for me, it might be because of these mistakes.